Welcome to a special morning. I believe it is almost close to 9:30. Stock market will open rock and roll. Overtime, every time with yours truly, Rainbow Dragon, philosopher, artist, athlete, philosopher, and geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist who is financially stressed, but albeit financially stressed aside, I did pay my rent, paid my electricity bill, paid a new coffee for some coffee. Gotta mix the old with the new, gotta find the new ways and a bit although gotta be grateful, even if of course one is financially stressed and like myself living in a precarious financial situation, you gotta sometimes live austere, and I have been for many years. But gratitude is a great component because I got everything I need for today and for tomorrow, I guess, for the coming days, weeks, and I can stretch it out against my food that I have. So I got some biscuits, I got some chocolate for after my workout. And today, this morning, we're gonna be working out the brain, train the brain, and it's gonna be geopolitics plus geopolitics and with geopolitics, because that is my obsessive, aka special interest. I do not use the terminology obsessive way too much because obsessive has a more negative connotation. It is a special interest. As you know, I do live with a neurological mental divergent condition, which is known as Asperger's condition. It is a very rare condition, less than 0.5%, less than 1 percentile, about 0.44% of the population of mankind has it. So it's a very rare neurological mental divergent condition. It is not a mental illness. It just makes us aspies predisposed to certain characteristics which make us weird and odd and very socially awkward, and social characteristics which make us more peculiar. And I guess a lot of like it's stated in the book that I read a few weeks ago, and I read it like 3 times, but mainly I focused on some main passages which were mostly characteristics for my complex as being, of course, an aspie, as an individual aspie, part of the aspie community, that of course we are usually labeled a lot as being weird and odd and what those more abnormal appellations. But however it is, I'm part of this neurodivergent community which lives with Asperger's. And again, it is not a mental illness. It is a neurological mental divergent condition. It's just that our brains are made different, so the composition of our brain structure is made different. So that makes us having these special interests, obsessive interests, which preoccupy our daily habits, routines, and rituals, and can be pretty intense and super concentrated, and we're super in it when we do. Even today, I started this morning, and of course I do geopolitical theoretical analysis on the daily, and I take a lot of pride in my work as a geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist. And lately, I've been through a lot, suffered scars, and pretty much joyous these past years. But I also gotta be making the statement that I'm marking 5 years since I survived COVID back between February 2020 and March 2020. So having survived COVID, I also gotta say, of course, that it's something which is a blessing to be right here today to do this video live, and maybe of course find some solutions and resolutions for the North American collective. I'm speaking as a North American, Canadian, Quebecer, and of course as somebody who has an ill and will continue to challenge Donald Trump to a boxing match on the Canadian-US border ever since 2018, when Donald Trump imposed tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel. And I got a new table. It was gifted to yours truly about September, I think around mid-September or so, 2024 last year, when I did some work. And it's kind of interesting, kind of providential, because it has two halves. See, kind of has two halves. It's kind of split in the middle, kind of split in half here in the middle of it. You see, it's kind of split in half. On one side is kind of bigger, and the other one is kind of smaller. So it kind of be, for me, of it's today as a geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist, it will represent big brother, big sister, little sister, big brother, and kind of the relationship between us Canadians and my brothers and sisters in the USA. And I was born in, I'm also a mystic, not only an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist, and I was born in the USA 3 times post 1776. Once was born as a woman. You get that 50-50 now, and twice was born as a man. Of course, I served in the United States Armed Forces. And as for Canada, well, I got that Canada tatted up here. So don't ask me when I got it, probably decades ago or more than 15-20 years ago, somewhere in this Quebec, Canada province. It's the Canadian kind of flag. So I always joke. The other day I said, I joke, I don't need to put the flag because I always carry it on me. I don't need to put the Canadian flag because I always carry it on me. But the true north, strong and free, with my brothers and sisters, the land of the free and the home of the brave. It's not enough just being strong and free and brave, and you gotta add some LOV, some loving in that. Because if I make a million a day in a train, I'm gonna give 50%, half to my anonymous friend who wasn't my friend because of the money, because I never had any. And Asperger's, it can be pretty intense, pretty pretty difficult for people who are neurotypicals to fully comprehend, to fully live in this world. So we always have to build bridges between myself as a neurodivergent who lives with Asperger's and somebody who's not, because sometimes social communications and social characteristics can be very difficult for us, and it's always building bridges between myself as an individual part of the neurological mental divergent condition known as ASPIES, being an ASPIE myself, a philosopher. I take great pride in my work as an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist. I take really great pride because, of course, the matters are serious, but I have to make the statement again, as I have in the past days, past months, past years, that I have predicted the current situation in the world that's transpiring since about 3.5 years ago during COVID, which has begun. I have predicted it back in October 2019. I predicted that on the horizon there's going to be increasing militarism and conflicts, and there's going to be reunification of old conflicts which date from the 20th century. So in other words, in 2019, in October, November, I had predicted an international conflagration, aka World War III mode. So I'm kind of in that since then, since October, November. I'm pretty much in a World War III type of a Canadian citizen, in a World War III type of mode, type of being, type of how I am, with my alertness, with my whole being, And after October, November 2019, I of course was struck by COVID. COVID, of course, I had between February 2020 and March 2020. I was really sick and ill. I really thought I was gonna die right here in this room of Sun Temple. I say I died during COVID. I'm being reborn. Nothing that I will to go back to, but it was like death, pestilence, and disease. It was really hardcore. I got really hit. And again, my trinity on COVID is I don't know what caused COVID. I believe it was snakes to human beings, but the transmission of COVID could have been something else. So thus I have a doubt. I cannot rule out another possibility. What I do know 100% without a doubt is that before COVID, in October, November 2019, I created and made a workout training program system to go hand in hand with a World War III scenario, with an international conflagration, and being, of course, an independent athlete, which I love sports and fitness, and that's parallel to geopolitics. That's my other special interest. They kind of go hand in hand together in many ways, sports and fitness. And of course, I could discuss, I have written the geopolitics of the Olympic Games, in the past like 7 years. I wrote a kind of a paper, theoretical papers all over, spread mostly in my brain. There are in my library of the brain, but they're mostly in USB keys on I got like 5 USB keys all around here, which I got to plug. I have written tens of thousands of pages of philosophies, and mainly related to geopolitics, and of course also rock and roll, because that's my third special interest, rock and roll. So that's my holy trinity, and my routines, my whole life surrounds around those three. Yes, I can be flexible and do something else, and make compromises, but yes, those are the main things which this independent ASPIE artist, athlete, philosopher, geopolitical theoretical analyst, and theorist, and mystic, because I am spiritual. But before I proceed, I want to get that cup of coffee, get going, and I want to give a salutation. I gotta give some love, because I'm the people's artist in many ways, being part of this tiny minority of less than 1%, less than half of a percentile, 0.44%. I always, when I meditate on geopolitics, I gotta salute the firefighters, the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors. Gotta sing some rock and roll for the truckers, for the warehouse workers, going up on those steel toes, on the construction workers, they go up those cranes, with the metal and the paint and the cement and the rocks, they building all those blocks, for the Hydro-Quebec workers, gotta give some of that loving, for the public workers who pick up the garbage, the recycling, the compost. I always gotta give a little bit of shout out, salutation to them, because it's part of the collective and it's part of the geopolitics. It involves, of course, having the awareness of all the work, all the economy, all the finances, and all the structure of the economic, financial, and commercial and political systems which surround us. Myself as a Quebecer, Canadian, North American, my geopolitics are North American centric, and my geopolitics, you have to leave the baggage at the door. We're going to focus mainly on geopolitics. As much as I don't support Donald Trump's election, I would have voted for Kamala and Harris. As much as I don't support his policies, I believe my complementary trinity or theories for the North American collective confusion of Canada and United States best, being the CIT, Citizen Integration Theory, the DRT, Debt Refusion Theory, and the Democratic Fusion Theory, that trinity of theories to be implemented via love. And I have those gloves, and which my anonymous friend gifted me a few years ago. It's almost more than six years ago. You see these gloves, they got it on that rock and roll, so that's why we gotta get it. And my favorite color is red, so I have been and will continue to challenge Donald Trump to a boxing match on the Canadian US Canadian-U.S. border, on the Canadian-U.S. border. I've been challenging Donald Trump since 2018 when the first imposition of tariffs occurred, in 2018, but only 10% on aluminum and steel, and now we're on the verge of having another tariff. But consequently, yesterday, the global trade war between the United States and basically USA versus the world kind of type of economic trade war has commenced. But Canada, I guess, Canada and Mexico was spared. And Mexico is, of course, part of the North American collective, part of the collective North American civilizational complex. As a philosopher, what I deem to be the North American civilizational complex, which includes also the islands. The islands are included. Cuba is a paradox because they're Marxist-Leninists, maintain their socialist republic. And of course, Haiti, Jamaica, and the islands, the Barbados and Trinidad, they're part of the North American collective. So I'm just gonna pour a little bit of coffee now, and I gotta say my gratitude again before I pour the coffee. I gotta say, this month gotta give a shout out for the workers of the 20th century, the workers of the 20th century, the workers of the 20th century. Gonna remember the rock and roll, because my brothers and sisters, we gotta thank a little bit of those seniors, because we have all the electricity, all the running water, the aqueducts, the sewers, which we have, the farmers, the butchers, all the labor work which was done in the 20th century across Quebec, Canada, United States. For me even to get a little support, to pay my rent, pay my electricity bill first, and pay a little bit of my $10,000 debt. I got $10,000, not a credit card, a credit line, and I got 800. Last me for the month of April, 879. $879. But I paid my rent, paid my electricity bill, got coffee, and I managed a tight budget to get those $1 wafers, because I love wafers. So I'm always open for business, always open for business. I had jobs and employment, which I loved during COVID, especially a few employments and jobs, especially with the elderly senior citizens, which I really loved in a warehouse as well, and in steel. But the problem is, in my community, Aspies, there's a high unemployment rate because there's a lot of misunderstanding and stigma surrounding what we are fundamentally, which we're not. It's not a mental illness, it's a neurological mental divergent condition, which makes us very weird, and sometimes the social communication can be awkward and strange. And also, for example, a characteristic is personal space. We have a tendency to get very close to people, very close. These social understanding, social communications come very hard. For example, personal space. An Aspie might get so close to you, like a 2 inches, 3 inches, instead of the normal 2 feet, 3 feet distance. So things as personal distance, repeating words, ekalela, repeating what somebody else says, or words from a movie. So that strangeness of being an Aspie has been quite of a journey. But to my fellow Aspies, and to the fellow Aspie who about 7 months ago give me a donation, not a lot, $25.44. I think I got some food, some wafers, and a $9 bottle of wine to share for the Sabbath weekend with my anonymous friend, whom, if I make a million, I'm gonna give half, 50%. And my will here today is gonna be geopolitics. We're gonna get going with geopolitics, and I'm gonna put some of this coffee from the old and from the new, because it takes a little bit of that old school. With the new, fundamentally it takes a little bit of old school with the new. So I put a little bit of the old coffee, what's left, and the new coffee. And now today we're waking up in the geopolitical situation that the United States administration, Trump, and by de facto being the leader Trump, and has begun imposing tariffs on many countries of the world. You're gonna have to, to listen to this discourse lecture, you're gonna have to leave the baggage at the door, and the sentimental aspects of geopolitics, and it's just real geopolitics, the realities of geopolitics as we are today, as we live them today. And again, I come to a little bit of the past, 5 years 2019, October, November. I have predicted what's happening now in the general manager, general international conflagration, of course, and it's a possibility of a World War III on the horizon. And so consequently, I created and produced a workout training program system, a video design made to go hand in hand and created to go hand in hand with such a scenario as the aforementioned. Oh, this coffee smells good. I'm just gonna pour it in there like that, and we're gonna get going. So the old and the new. So we wake up to a new economic, financial, worldwide trade, world trade, a new trade war which began, and I know it's marked Donald Trump, Dragon versus Trump. Let's go Dragon versus Trump, me and you, Donald Trump, on the Canadian-US border. Let's build together the North American Imperial People's Coliseum. My will to build on the Canadian-US border with public-private partnership, both Canada and United States fused, a mega structure, a coliseum for sportists in perpetuities, for sportists in perpetuities, for sports in perpetuity, for 24/7 sports fitness activity from the colleges, from the universities of Canada, and from the NFL, National Football League, NHL, National Hockey League, NBA, National Basketball Association, MLB, from the 4 sports leagues, major sports leagues, and of course the PVHL, Professional Women's Hockey League, which I love, and I wish I could afford a jersey to buy. That's gonna be my next expense, is gonna be buying a jersey, but that's what it is with that. And because I love sports and fitness, but dancing is my favorite sport. Dancing is my favorite sport. My favorite sport is dancing. Dancing is my favorite sport, and I create choreography. I just dance. I just hear music. I dance. I guess freestyle dance, whatever the term may be. I just dance. I love dancing, and I guess you can say that I'm a dancer as well. I just love dancing. That's it. That's all. I can dance for hours, I really dance. Not your 44 seconds Instagram dancing there. You can see hundreds of my dance videos, by the way, but nonetheless, here we are. The coffee smells so good. I'm just gonna put it there now and smell it a little bit. Oh, it smells so good. This coffee is imported from, it says on the bag, because we don't grow coffee in Canada, nor the United States. Mexico grows. From Guatemala. Guatemala. So, I'm not sure exactly the tariffs imposed on Guatemala. See, are there any tariffs on Guatemala? If there are general tariffs on Guatemala, that means that the coffee that's going to be imported in the United States is going to get more pricey. That means that the coffee that's going to get into the United States is going to get more pricey. So, this one was on special. It was reduced. I never bought it before. It was organic. It was by a company here, Quebecer company. They're now giving me any finance. I'm not giving any money from this. I'm not being any sponsor, public or private, although it's Pledge Your Allegiance, to our family, the rock and roll song. Nobody's born a dragon to become one. The Dragon Army. I started doing military cadences for the Dragon Army, which I'm calling for the public-private partnership creation of this new security service and defense institution, for the formation of the new 911 protocols for the North American collective, because basically 911 is both Canada and United States. When you call 911, you get the security services and the police services, and in both Canada and United States, right? It's the same. It's 911, and even Mexico. So I've written few documents, philosophies back in 2017, 2018, based on new protocols and convergence of the geopolitical points, which I had concluded, of course, back in 2019, that we are headed towards an international conflagration. And here are today with the trade war started, and got this coffee from Guatemala. Time to pour some of that hot water. Let's go get ready. So today it is basically April 3rd, and April 3rd is, of course, the day after Liberation Day. Now, there's going to be a lot of maybe terminology, more. I'm going to try to be as down to earth as I can be without being too intellectually sophisticated, nor academic, nor cosmopolitan in geopolitics. Again, you have to leave the baggage at the door, and you have to understand that I take great pride in my work as an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist who lives with scars, many scars, who's a man and a woman. You have to leave that kind of at the door, that I'm part of the LGBTQ community, that I'm an ASPE neurodivergent. That is actually important. That is actually of importance, because of course it's my special interest. So it's something which I take great pride in, and I do work in geopolitics on the daily basis. Before I do commence, I want to say that by providence, I guess by providence, we say mystic, I found this next to my second home, the mountain. Next to my second home, the mountain, Mount Royal, where I go often to the meditations and rock and roll and military cadence drink for the North American Collective, my brothers and sisters, Quebecers, brothers and sisters in Canada, brothers and sisters in the United States. And I found this one, and I said, yes, I found it. It was right at the entrance, so I said I was going to recycle it, because there's like, I do a lot of work, volunteer work. When I go there on the mountain, I just put things that have to go in the trash, they go in the trash, or that go in the recycling, they go in the recycling. And I do for nature, for Mother Nature, for the environment, because we're doing a lot of plantation of new trees there, and new flowers and new trees and new flora and fauna, which has to be refurbished and restart again. Of course, the reconstitution of the environment on Mount Royal, there's a lot of work being done. So I found this. It says, celebrate every brain, celebrate every brain, celebrate every brain. So an ASPI brain is made different. The constitution, the way our brains are different. We have, our brains are different. So certain things are very difficult for us to understand or to process. Now when it comes to the special interests, we have our strengths, but we also have our vulnerabilities. We're less able in certain things, and yes, in certain things I'm vulnerable, I'm less able, or it's not really like a disability in a sense, but yes, in certain social things I'm less able, I'm not that capable in certain things, and certain things I just don't get. I have to be told directly, and then consequently I do it, because I do not like violence. I don't like violence. I do not like violence. I was attacked by surprise a few years ago. I fell, hit my head, had a dislocated arm, and have to retrieve from the Jewish General Hospital the archives, and I was put on some medication, and I had like a few days of coma. I was kind of coma, and then my memory kind of goes blackout, and I moved here and started working. I was depressed, suicidal. I started working out, training, exercising after I crossed Canada coast to coast. In 2017, that event really changed my life, crossing Canada coast to coast, and I started writing a theoretical paper, which I'm calling for the implementation for both Canada and the United States, for the consequence public-private partnership for citizens to visit Canada and the US, and that would be a better way to invite us, as Donald Trump, that would have been a better way to invite us, for Canadians to join the Union, the United States, 51st state or 63 states, whatever the case may be, for the 10 provinces or 10 territories, because we constitute in Canada have 13 different political entities, 10 provinces and 3 territories. But my brothers and sisters, fellow Canadians, the king is absent. The king is absent. And I did not like, and I don't agree with our leader, Prime Minister, pledging allegiance to the king and his heirs. Pledging allegiance to the king and his heirs. I do not agree with our Prime Minister's pledging allegiance to the king of England and his heirs. Pledge allegiance to the farmers, the butchers, the truckers, the nurses, the construction workers, those in the daycare changing some diapers. That's what we're going to defend. And coast to coast, ocean to ocean, and all ALL who come to join here in the great North American civilizational complex, as we're going to fuse Canada, United States, and we're going to create a common currency, common passport, and we're going to fuse and get that security, service, and defense, Dragon Army, public-private partnership, the North American Integrated Security and Service and Defense Force, which I'm calling for the implementation across all the North American collective. And it's better if we focus coast to coast geopolitically, and strictly from a mere geopolitical perspective. It's best if we focus coast to coast, ocean to ocean, coast to coast, ocean to ocean for security service, because the border is kind of super fluid, and we gotta do a great census, a great Canada United States joint census, an audit of the population and everything that we have coast to coast, ocean to ocean. Best the ports and the airports, best the ports and the airports. So this is the brain. Is celebrate every brain. See. Celebrate every brain, celebrate every brain, celebrate every brain. So our brains are different. The brains of ASPIs are made different. So certain things we are less able. I'm not going to use disability. I'm going to use less able. Less able in the sense that social communications and awareness of certain social cues, we have to be, for us ASPIs, mostly they have to be verbalized, and when they are, for example, then we take action. But we take action, we can, although we have our more rigid rituals and routines, we can be flexible. I can, as an individual ASPI part of the community, I can be pretty flexible. So And this one, all brains are beautiful. So I just find it nice. Celebrate every brain. Celebrate every brain. All brains are beautiful. So celebrate every brain. Celebrate every brain. Celebrate every brain. But when it comes to geopolitics, sports and fitness, I would say dancing, because I'm gonna get sacked on the field unless I do some drills, defense drills, and I play defense because yes, I am hyper vigilant. I've been in the World War III type of mode since 2019. I live with a hyper vigilant. I have a lot of scars on my body, even on my, you know, I say privates and androgynous, androgynous 50-50 man woman privates. But we got that. Celebrate every brain. Let's go. When I say push-ups, do push-ups with consent, hug like you never hugged before. Military cadence, drag and drop down, give me some push-ups. Celebrate every brain. Yes, by Providence I found it, and I love the colors. Whoever colored this is very nice. Well done. Good job. And I guess that is with the flowers and celebrating every brain. Celebrate every brain. Celebrate every brain. Some brains are more inclined to art, science, mathematics, whatever the case would be. And I love mathematics. I could do percentages and calculations and fractions for hours and hours and hours without, you know. But I'm not an expert. I'm not a mathematical professor. I'm not an expert. I guess I just do some math. If I can do some math, I just do. I just can do some, I guess. I'm not that great at math, but I can do, and I like just doing. But some things I'm less able. So there we go. Now we're gonna get it on another cup of coffee, and we're gonna get that toast, and we're gonna get the geopolitics one-on-one. The trade war begun by Trump. His imposition of massive tariffs. Now, as a geopolitical strategy, regardless of whatever notions, when they're left, right, or center, I'm a pro-labor, universal, revolutionary centrist. As a geopolitical strategy, tariffs have not been used in this lately. The trend has been for decades globalization, free trade, free trade, free trade. Now, because there is perceived, and perhaps in some cases there's some truth to certain injustices in the trade trade balance, imbalance, meaning more than one imports, more than one exports, right? Because those are trade imbalances, and in the world of geopolitics, these trade imbalances exist. So one country might import way more than it exports or that other country imports. For us Canadians, and again, before I grew, because I'm a Quebecer Canadian, I was born in the United States 3 times, post 70-76. I believe in reincarnations, being a mystic, and once I was born a woman, and twice I was born a man. Served in the United States Armed Forces twice. Two different wars. The wars were 156 years apart, and you just read that George Patton, Through a Glass Darkly. One of my favorite poems is Through a Glass Darkly by George Patton, where he believes in reincarnation, but unfortunately George Patton only wrote that he was born a man, but for as a matter of fact, George Patton was my wife in a past life about 2,500 years ago, so he was like me, also born a woman, not only a man in a past life, George Patton, and I can get that channeling myself from past life, channeling George Patton to the power of 7. Let's go on the drill. So let's go for the geopolitics one-on-one. The geopolitics is, of course, it's a whole universe. It encompasses politics, it encompasses philosophy, culture, history, and of course, fundamentally, it deals with the relationship and interplay of nation-state civilizational complexes, and of course, the civilizational complexes, the nation-states, or the geopolitical regions, or the fundamental alliances, such as, of course, the BRICS alliance, the NATO alliance, of which we're part of, the NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization state, and of course, here, Canada, United States, joint military alliance, NORAD, which by the Dragon Army New 911 protocols for the North American Collective, I'm calling it to be taken a step further, to be based on the principles by the creation of the Dragon Army, a public-private partnership from Canada, United States joint, to be based on 3 simple principles, the acronyms SSD, Security, Service, and Defense. The Dragon Army for Security, Service, and Defense. What are we? The Dragon Army for what? SSD, Security, Service, and Defense, for SSD principles. So, fundamentally, in essence, as a Quebecer, as a Canadian, my and yours and ours, we have to understand this fully without illusions. Regardless of Donald Trump, our sentiments, our feelings, and I would definitely love to box and say, You know, you should have invited us with some pie baking, with some inviting Canadians by baking some apple pies, some cherry pies, some strudel pies, some shrimp pies, all sorts of pies baking across the 50 states. I want the 50 states to organize a pie baking to say invite you Canadians properly to the union to become the 51st or the 63 states. We're going to do it properly. We're going to do a good invitation for our fellow brothers and sisters Canadians, as we have a common North American collective destiny, as the king is absent. With all love to my brothers and sisters across Canada and the United States, it's not the way to do it with bullying and tariffs. You're going to do it a little bit of pie baking, and doing a little bit of dancing. Best if you do a little bit of dancing and pie baking and hugging. I say with some love and LOV, by making and of course available for Canadians to come visit the 50 states, by opening of course a lot of hotels, all the hotels, by mobilizing the security services, by mobilizing of course hundreds of buses in the motels, and invite Canadians, and do around vice versa, my brothers and sisters in the USA, to come to Canada and organize intra-tourism of course for the whole summer. Let's make it a summer of love. Summer of love starting July or June. Summer officially June 22nd or June 20th. I guess equinox is between June 20th and June 22nd. I believe June 21st. June 21st, the equinox officially, first day of summer is like 20th, 21st of June, or it could be September 11th, or whatever the case may be, December 3rd, or November 11th, or whatever the case may be, February, mid-February, or it could be all any month. But I'm just saying like that to make it a summer of love by doing this action instead of the tariffs. But fundamentally, whatever I might say, of course, geopolitically as Canadians, our primary first interest is to have the best, most possible relations with our brothers and sisters in the USA, in the United States, economically, financially, security wise. That's just the principle, geopolitical principle. If you there's an objection to this from a geopolitical perspective, then there's a barrier, there's a wall in the world of geopolitically. Not, I'm no Trump supporter. I would have voted for Biden. I would have voted for Kamala. I'm for the North American collective. I'm a pro-labor and love universal revolutionary centrist. I'm a democratic Republican. I am a geopolitically independent, geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist who takes great pride in her work, because that's my special interest as an ASPI. So I just do geopolitics on the daily. So we have to agree on the table with that. Our main geopolitical interest is not serving the King of England and his heirs. It's serving the 40 million Canadians. And serving the 40 million Canadians' interests, and all who come to join us, because we are a new emergent, my brothers and sisters, natives, and all Canadians. When we fuse, I'm still gonna be a Quebecer Canadian, still gonna rock and roll in that French as well, my brothers and sisters in the USA, because we have a common destiny in the new world. We constitute a new collective emergent civilizational complex. We're a new civilizational complex, including Quebec, Canada, and the North American complex is a new emergent civilizational complex, or a complex of civilizational. It's an emergent one since the Second World War, and it's constantly emergent and fluctuating. But it's not only divorced from Western civilization, but it's distinct. So it has a distinction, but it's not divorced. So it's not divorced from Western civilization, but it is distinct. So that is the things that you have to remember. That is, there's no divorce between the North American civilizational complex, but there are distinctions in my philosophy. So fundamentally, as a Canadian leadership in the politics, the leader of Canada, whether hypothetically Canada would be the 51st state, right, would be fundamentally to serve the best coast to coast, ocean to ocean, from the Atlantic to the Pacific, admire and mask admire. Not for the King of England. No disrespect to King Charles, the King is absent. And the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, those who pick up the garbage, the compost, the recycling every week, the nurses, those who change the diapers in the daycares, those who change the diapers in the daycares, the construction workers in the warehouse workers, the cleaning workers, those doing some cheeseburgers, hamburgers, those fixing some breakfast, fixing some lunch, those getting on that clean to learn some mathematics, the teachers teaching some geopolitics, maybe some mathematics, some history, some French, because we here in La Belle Province and I rock and roll bilingual like Celine Dion. So on the table of geopolitics, when we're discussing, that answer has to be yes. Our main interest as Canadians, as Canada, encompassing all Canadians, myself as a individual neurodivergent, yours coast to coast, ocean to ocean, has to be the primary interest that we, from a geopolitical perspective, geopolitics, it's just geopolitics, is that we must have the best cordial economic, financial, commercial, business relations with our brothers and sisters in the USA, with the United States of America. Whether now it's Donald Trump, the president, even if it would have been Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, it would have been, that is a constant. That is a geopolitical constant. That is a geopolitical constant. Just like mathematics, you know the pi mathematics, 3.1416. 3.1416, 3.1416, and it goes on and on and on and on. The mathematical pi symbol, it's a constant number, a ratio with the circle and some science, I guess, mathematics. And I'm not a scientist. In a parallel life, I'm also an ASPE. I design, build supercomputers, microchips, and everything to do with coding, and supercomputers and microchips. Code 24/7. I just code and do computers and build supercomputers like 24/7. That's what I type, and create microchip supercomputers and code in a parallel life. And I get headaches when I communicate with my parallel self, because in this life is geopolitics, sports, fitness, dancing is my favorite sport, and of course rock and roll. So that's what I do on the daily. And now that is a constant, geopolitical constant. So that principle you have to retain. One has to retain, yes. That is our fundamental principle, essence, geopolitical principle. Canadians, the best. The interest, we have the best. Our interest, first and foremost, our main interest is to have the best, most cordial relations with the brothers and sisters in the United States. From a USA perspective, it kind of goes vice versa. Doesn't it? Kind of goes vice versa. So it also applies. I'm not, because I'm a Canadian, Quebec, and North American, born in the USA, but from a United States perspective, Donald Trump, what are you doing? Say I made a mistake. Fellow Canadians, I love you. What did I do? I'm so clumsy here. So many mistakes I did with my anonymous friend. If I make $1 million, $1 billion, $1 trillion, gonna give 50% half here. I made so many mistakes. I break so many things in the house because Asperger's were clumsy, you know. We have sometimes now when I work out, train, exercise, because then I do push-ups and dance and focus on my workout. Then I can focus. But in certain things, Asperger's we can be clumsy, so we break things and certain things do around the house. So I deserve to be whipped, maybe a little bit. But this fundamental constant applies in geopolitics. From my brothers and sisters in the United States, with the Republican Democrats in the Congress, in the good USA, in the United States Congress, the Republican or Democrat in the House, get an executive order to finance the rebuilding of the North American inner urban cities. Let's rebuild the ghettos. Let's rebuild the ghettos together. Let's raise the minimum wage and let's mass finance the rehabilitation of our brothers and sisters who lost their liberty, their freedom. Got freedom tatted up here, you know. Freedom tatted up. I'm gonna show it off, my Canada and freedom. I don't know, supposedly, because I have from journals where I got it in New York City. I have to check their journals because my memory kind of blacks out enough 10, 11 years and then kind of like black out of memories, but freedom, I got it supposedly in New York. Freedom. See? Freedom is a new, even me to work for freedom, to ensure. Freedom has to be insured. That's going to be the mission of the Dragon Army, the North American Integrated Dynasty, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. Security, service, and defense only. Coast to coast, ocean to ocean. Canada, United States fused. New 21st century institutions. You bet I can do George Patton to the power of 7 drills, Aspie Dragon drills, Rainbow Dragon drills, military cadence 24/7. So that's what we gotta get doing. And my brothers and sisters in the Congress, also, that has to be the geopolitical reality for the United States as well. To have the best relations, economic, financial, commercial, with the with Canada. The king is absent, brothers and sisters, fellow Canadians. Thank you, farmers, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, those chopping up some sandwiches, those doing some cleaning workers, artists. If you're a millionaire, billionaire, please give some charity. And let's sign some executive orders for, of course, the creation of the North American Integrated Dance League, Canada joint United States fused, the Dragon Army, and get that coast to coast, ocean to ocean. And for it's best from a geopolitical perspective, it's best if we fuse. From a geopolitical perspective, it's best if we fuse, and we have, of course, certain fundamental differences, but we can only strengthen ourselves. This table has two sides. We can always strengthen. One can strengthen the other. One can strengthen the other, and it can strengthen and balance the other. But the balance and the strengthening can come via public-private partnerships, PPP, public-private partnership, because we gotta be some mass investment in the public as well. Public healthcare, public education, and public, of course, the public workers. Please, NFL, National Football League, NHL, National Hockey League, NBA, National Basketball Association, MLB, please reduce the cost from 44%, 44.9% the cost of the tickets, and give some tickets for the sports leagues, NFL, National Football League, NHL, National Hockey League, NBA, National Basketball Association, MLB. Give some tickets to the firefighters, to the public workers, public doctors who work in the public healthcare system, and those who pick up the garbage, the compost and the garbage. Finance them some of that good stuff, good tickets. So from a geopolitical perspective, that has to be the reality from both sides. Not just from the Canadian perspective in geopolitics. Our primary political interest is to have the best, most powerful, strong economic, financial, commercial, security relations with the United States as Canadians. That's a constant. It's just like pi, like mathematics. Just like pi, like mathematics. It's just like pi, like mathematics. From the United States perspective, from a geopolitical perspective, it's the same thing. My brothers and sisters in the United States have to have the best, most cordial economic, financial, political, security relations with us Canadians. Rock and roll, just like pi. Not pi that you eat, but pi, the constant, the number, the symbol pi, 3.1416. That's the constant, the geopolitical constant. There's no way around it. Sure, we are part of the NATO complex. The NATO complex. But that's a military alliance which constitutes several nation states. But fundamentally, in essence, the first primary interest, geopolitical interest, from a Canadian perspective, is to have the best relations, the best economic, financial, commercial, security, military relations with the United States. And from the United States perspective, is the same thing. Now, in Europe, the dynamics are different. France, Italy, because we're part of NATO, Canada, US, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, nation states, but fundamentally, they're also part of the European Union. So from a geopolitical perspective, from a geopolitical perspective, fusing Canada and United States, whether in a similar manner that the European did, my vision, I think, best. And please, Donald Trump, say I made a mistake. I'm gonna take all the tariffs off Canada. I'm gonna invite Canadians properly. Properly. And we have to make some arrangements, because there has to be some public, and there has to be some environmental work, and there has to be some protection for my brothers and sisters who are part of the LGBTQ community like myself. I am androgynous, pansexual. I like my BDSM switch. You don't need to spy on me. I got plenty of scars, and let the secret services of Russia stay over there and boot them all over. Dragon Army, boot them over the ocean, and the other armies, let them stay over there in the Pacific and the Atlantic, because we're gonna get that rolling. Coast to coast, ocean to ocean, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. And my call for implementing Operation Northern Scorpio, 2 sets of 3.5 years and 7 years for the Septennium, for the Dancing Goddess and the Dragon Kingdom, which is fundamentally my dream, which is a public call for a public-private partnership. Fundamentally, this call for the public-private partnership is fundamentally based, is also geopolitical, in essence. It is geopolitical as well. It's geopolitical as well, because it's fusing Canada and the United States via public-private partnership by making a census, creating a new passport, a common passport and a common currency, and a common security force apparatus to be only and strictly solely for security service and defense, security service and defense for security service and defense, and rebuilding the infrastructure and building 44 tunnels, constructing 44 tunnels, building 44 tunnels in case of a thermonuclear war, based on one of my theoretical papers. And of course, those tunnels to be built to be inspired by the Cheyenne Mountain Complex, which is the center of NORAD headquarters, Cheyenne Mountain Complex. And the Montreal, we have an underground village in Montreal. I gotta love those engineers. I love engineers. The brains of the engineers are wow. Like, mad love, mad respect engineers who build the bridges, the highways, all the highways, Canada, United States, all the highways for us to have all the interconnected, the railways, civilization is a privilege, civilization is a privilege, the electrification, to have electrics, for me to be able to do this video, which perhaps gonna give some solutions and resolutions, be of some help somehow, with all my financial stress, being financially stressed, being with all my scars, having survived COVID, with being here on this 3rd of April right here, and being of course on some love with the butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, grocery store clerks, and all those of course who involve us in the production, distribution of food to get it on the go for the love. So that's why I know that somebody's making some love today, somebody's gonna hug and kiss, and somebody's gonna make some love, and that also gives me some hope, because it's not all about Wall Street, and it takes some of that LOV as well. It's not all about the money. That's why we gotta do it with some love, and it's not like I always say from a geopolitics perspective, the true north, strong and free. Well, strength and freedom is not enough. True north, strong and free. You gotta add some love to that. You gotta have some love to that, just like the home of the brave and the land of the free. In the home of the brave and the land of the free, you gotta add some loving. In the home of the brave and the land of the free, you gotta add some loving. And of course, here, the True North, Strong and Free, also got to add some loving, and we got to build together the North American People's Imperial Coliseum, the North American Imperial People's Coliseum, the North American People's Imperial Coliseum, the North American Imperial People's Coliseum on the Canadian-US border, with the first event to be Dragon versus Trump, and then to have sports in perpetuities, and to be 11 times bigger than the Caesars Superdome, which is in Louisiana, New Orleans, Louisiana, where my favorite Super Bowl was played. Harbaugh Bowl, aka Blackout Bowl, aka Harbaugh Bowl, was where my 49ers lost by not a lot, but still, even if it's by 1 point, 2 points, 3 points, it's a loss. Harbaugh Bowl, aka Blackout Bowl. Harbaugh Bowl, aka Blackout Bowl, was played between the 49ers and the Ravens. And the Ravens of Baltimore, they won over my 49ers, because dancing is my favorite sport, but I love football, American football, great iron, and I love it. And much of my defense theories for the North American Collective, and especially my total mobile defense theory system, or the total mobile defense theory, the total mobile TM, Total Mobile Defense, DT, Total Mobile Defense Theory, which is of course a system when it's to be applied, to gotta be put into application, to be on the system of that. And the system is the application of the system to be in concordance when it's total TM, Total Mobile Defense Theory, Total Mobile Defense Theory. The total mobile defense theory I cannot discuss over much because it involves sensitive national security issues. But of course, when I add the S, being for a system, the system is to be put in action. So when I use the 4 acronyms, the total mobile defense theory system, that means that the acronym has to be put in an S, and that means that it's a system. It's got to be on the system to be put, of course, to get it on the go with that. And that's what we got to get doing to get on the love side of things, So that's what we got to get. The Total Mobile Defense Theory, TM, Total Mobile Defense Theory. It's one of my theories for the geopolitical defense, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, part of my call for the implementation of Operation Northern Scorpio, and part of the CIT theory, the citizen integration theory, which I'm calling for it to be implemented coast to coast, ocean to ocean, Canada, United States joint Operation Northern Scorpio, the creature scorpion, because we got a scorpion coming all the way. Only one species of scorpio reaches Canada. And my total mobile defense theory, the TMDT, total mobile defense theory, the TMDT. When I say TMDTS system, that means that it's being implemented, that the total mobile defense theory, the TMDT, the total mobile defense theory, when the S is added, that means that it's in action, put in action, the theory put into practice, the theory put into practice. Fundamentally, the theory is put into practice when I add the S. But I cannot discuss it overly too much because this is live stream on Facebook, and on YouTube is going to be put the video for my Coffee with Dragon geopolitical session. So being that it has elements of national security, it has to be discussed only with generals and of course members of the national security apparatus, especially the ministers of defense and the minister of public security, ministers of public security and public security. And on the mountain from Mount Royal, because that's where when on the mountain Mount Royal, that's mostly in the past years and years, more than 7, where I've been going to my second home, the mountain, and that's where I usually created it and developed it. In origin has begun there, so I can dictate it and communicate it in an oral manner. But I've written on USB keys and written on theoretical papers, and I'm not going to overly discuss it over much because it's not today's discourse. Coffee with Dragon session is not focused on the total mobile defense theory. It's not focused on the total mobile defense theory. It's focused, of course, on the geopolitical realities of today. Thursday, when I gotta take that compost. Thank you for the compost work, and I gotta do some workout, and I gotta do some email, and I gotta see if I got some business opportunities, employment opportunities in concordance, which I am, of course, always open for business. Financially stressed. Thank you, farmers, bakers, butchers, nurses, doctors, grocery store clerks. Thank you, farmers, butchers, bakers, grocery store clerks, and the warehouse drivers, in the public drivers, public bus drivers, those on the trains carrying all those lanes, on the trains with some freight, some grains on the lanes, choo-choo on the train. We gotta feel a little bit of that pain. It ain't easy to be free, but you gotta get that security with that liberty. In the dance you gotta be. It ain't all about the strength and the freedom, bravery. You gotta have some loving. You gotta see. Oh, I love rock and roll. Sometimes I just go into rock and roll trances. I also rock and roll a lot. On the daily, new song channeled lyrics. So keep in mind that it's freestyle rock and roll. So if you want to use, just be aware that I'm financially struggling, and I'm always open for business, and especially for the farmers, butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, daycare workers, changing some of those diapers. For those on the construction workers going up the cranes, gotta sing it on the lanes, gotta sing it for the public workers, picking up the garbage and picking up the compost, dragging on me for the workers and the butchers and the bakers and the nurses and the truckers and the daycare workers. Gotta get dirty, gotta get back clean. Coffee. Gotta get some refill, and gonna revise and gonna discuss again the geopolitical theoretical analysis. Geopolitics, back to geopolitics, real geopolitics, and I'm gonna try to be as simple as I can, not to be too intellectual, too academic about the geopolitics of what I'm going to discuss. This new reality now, it's a new geopolitical realities. We've been hit with several difficult, tough, very hard, very dark, even geopolitical realities in the past years, and especially with the growing conflicts. But again, I go back to my work, as I take great pride in my geopolitical work, that I had predicted the current events in a general manner. I did not predict detail by detail, but in a general manner, I had predicted that on the horizon there's a coming. I said in the coming 7 years. So from October/November 2019, in the coming 7 years, there's going to be an international conflagration, and growing conflicts are on the horizon. So that's what's been happening. And to make a general resume, to make a general summary of my conclusion, was that due to the fact, fundamentally, in essence, due to the fact that many nation state civilizations and national regions did not fully resolve their conflicts from the 20th century, those conflicts are going to recommence, and they're going to restart in the 21st century. So that's what we're being seeing in the Russia-Ukraine crisis and situation and war. And again, as much as I can say and analyze from all the details that I know from the news, from the left, from the right, and from the center, of course, I'm not on the ground with 300 men and women, 300 men and women on the ground to have made a real assessment of every city to go, of course, across the land to make an assessment and to make an audit and a consequential, more in-depth comprehension of the conflict. But nonetheless, it is a conflict which predates the 21st century, which is rooted in the 20th century Cold War period, which lasted between 1947 and 1991. So almost 45 years, 44 years and 9 months, almost 45 years. The Cold War period is a great geopolitical period. And of course, I specialize in 20th century geopolitics and geopolitics specialization and analysis and theorizing on the daily. So today we wake up to a major new geopolitical reality. The United States imposing tariffs on many countries. Now, a country, a nation state, XYZ, whether the United States, whether Canada, whether another country, Germany, or another country, Egypt, or another country, South Africa, or India or China or Brazil or Mexico or any other country, nation state, political entity, there's fundamentally no obligation to conduct import-export business. So fundamentally there's no obligation or duty or right um, right to import-export. Fundamentally, in essence, the system which we have developed over the decades, and not over the decades, but also centuries, because mercantilism was also international, and the fur trade and other trades were also international in scope. But nonetheless, the geopolitical realities is that a nation state like the United States, because we're speaking with the United States powers, is fundamentally not obligated or has a duty to allow imports from another country, sovereign country. The geopolitical theory, fundamentally, right? Fundamentally, these are abstract notions. These are abstract ideas which were put into practice. Free trade, but a country can decide to be self-regulating and self-internal economy, not necessarily to deal with other countries or other nation states. There's also that path. It has not been taken. It has not been taken. That path. It has not really been taken in the past decades, because after the fall of the Soviet Union, and more than 44 years, almost 45, between 1947 and 1991, of the Cold War, there has been the shifting towards integration, right? But even before, it kind of dates with Deng Xiaoping opening of China. So since 1978, around 1978, when Deng Xiaoping implemented economic zones and policies of China to start trading with the world. So maybe it's rooted in that era, but also that era with China, and then in 1991, December 26, the dissolution of the Soviet Union, and consequently the fall of the Eastern European socialist communist countries, which were under a pact known as the Warsaw Pact. The Warsaw Pact, as I'm calling from Canada, United States, and all willingly loving to do the Montreal Pact, right on the Mount Road for the public-private partnership for my dream, the Dancing Goddess and the Dragon Kingdom. To also do a lot of good here in the North American collective, because we have a lot of work to do in Canada and the United States. Some of our neighborhoods need to be rebuilding and investing massively in the public. We need to rebuild the North American inner urban cities. We need to rebuild the ghettos. We need to mass invest billions and billions and billions in rebuilding of the ghettos. We need to channel the aggression in sports and fitness. That's why we need to build that mass 11 times bigger than the Caesar Superdome where the Hardball Bowl, aka Blackout Bowl, was, to have sports in perpetuities. to have sports events, fitness. Aggression needs to be channeled. Here, we made the great linguistic compromise. I always come as a philosopher, geopolitical theoretical analyst, and theorist of us Quebecers, myself as a Quebecer, who has to make an effort as an individual for the French language. It's a great compromise and agreement which we made for the French language. My brothers and sisters also who are blacks. Black men, black women, my neighbors included. I have black neighbors. 13.3, 13.4% of our population are my brothers and sisters who are blacks. We might have racism internally, there sometimes discriminations are subconscious. I'm open with open arms for hugging and kissing, and that money I can't help in the monetary way, in the financial manner, but nonetheless, if you want to make LOV with me, but you gotta be 18 though. You gotta be 18 plus, You gotta be 18 plus. You're gonna get carded like just when you go buy cigarettes or alcohol or alcohol, alcohol or going to club. You're white, black, or rainbow. Men or women, men or women, men or women. I play that rainbow, and that's just how I am. And now fitness and sports, but I'm also hyper vigilant, and we're gonna play that defense together, Canada, United States. Gonna play that Dragon Army. We're gonna play that DDD. Hut. We're gonna play that defense, coast to coast, ocean to ocean. Because we are in a reality when we kind of geopolitically we are vulnerable. We are vulnerable from outside the interference, from outside external forces. Because we took a path of interfering also militarily, so we potentially made powerful enemies of powerful nation states, which are nuclear armed and great financial capabilities for sabotage and espionage and on the plateau of Canada coast to coast. That's just the reality. And in the past years, we've seen more cases of espionage from foreign actors and espionage from foreign actors and all sorts of nefarious interference in the elections, all sorts of interference. So the geopolitical proposition and call is to do a census and see anybody who's been living in Canada for more than 5 years, to be eligible to serve in the security services. And 5 years, or more than 7 years, let's say, since I crossed Canada in 2017. I have those tickets. In 2017 August, I went to Vancouver, British Columbia, and of course then I went to Halifax, and in September went to Halifax, and then came back here. And of course that got me out of being depressed and suicidal. That event changed my whole life. I established a strong esprit de corps with my fellow Canadians. I established a strong esprit de corps with my fellow Canadians, and ever since I established that strong esprit de corps with my fellow Canadians, I did a lot of work, especially in geopolitics. I wrote tens of thousands of pages of philosophy, geopolitical work, of course, detailing for the North American collective, such as, of course, the North American Citizen Integrated Initiative for the Pacific, for the peaceful resolution of conflicts with non-NATO aligned diasporas, with the peaceful resolution of conflicts with non-NATO aligned diasporas, for the peaceful resolution of conflicts with non-NATO aligned diasporas. So it was a NATO NORAD centric geopolitical paper. I have to find it somewhere. It's a lot of it is in my head. I concorded and can dictate a bit of the principles and propositions orally, but I have them on USB key. So I did a lot of work, and independent geopolitical work. Now I gotta just blow my nose a little bit. I've been dripping over the weekend. I thought I dripped all my brain, and my brain's being remodeled, refilled by all that dripping of all that mucus, because it looked kind of white. So I said, is my brain matter rewiring? I guess maybe all the memory loss from youth, from adolescence, is being replaced by all the thousands of books which I read with one foot in the streets, one foot in the libraries, and walking, meditating, and alone on the alleys of Montreal, in the city metropolis, 2.5 million people island. We're an island, Montreal, surrounded by a river, and read tens of thousands of books, written tens of thousands of pages of philosophy. I said my brain maybe is refusing or reconstituting and regenerating, because there's neuroplasticity. So I don't know if I don't do drugs. I don't do drugs. I have tattoos on my body. Maybe I did a lot of drugs in my youth, and that's why my memory kind of blacks out, And I remember moving here about 10 years ago. I remember I used to live in a moldy place, moldy black mold, white like snow mold, and reddish and green, and very moldy place. I moved. I was depressed, suicidal. I crossed Canada coast to coast, and that event got me out of being depressed and suicidal. And here I am, joyous, but financially stressed, but joyous. So, and geopolitics again, it's my realm, my domain. If you want to commission any geopolitical work on a specific topics, and just be mindful that I'm an independent geopolitical theoretical analyst and theorist, although I do not have a university degree, I have a high school diploma. I do have a high school diploma, but I still got to do a lot of cleaning here. And anyways, but I'm auctioning those tickets. Like I said, I have tickets, bus tickets. I went from in 2017 in August with my anonymous friend. In August, I went to British Columbia, Vancouver, 2017, more than 7 years ago, and that event changed my whole life. And then I got tickets to go. I went, of course, to Halifax, Nova Scotia, Halifax. It took 25 hours and 44 minutes, and I have 2 tickets for those. So I'm auctioning the tickets, 4 tickets, 1 million each to give half to my anonymous friend. 1 million each ticket to give half to my anonymous friend, and gonna pay my $10,000 debt, and gonna buy the first bricks to build. The first building which I will to build is the Forgotten Goddess Temple, GODDSS, Goddess, the Forgotten Goddess Temple. Because on the table here is also not only God Bless America, but Goddess, Kiss, KISS, Goddess Kiss. Kisses I got by the trillions. I got trillions of kisses created from the Forgotten Goddess, for my brothers and sisters in the USA, across the 50 states, black and white and brown and all who come to join us, and fellow Canadians as well. Trillions of kisses. It's not just God Bless America. You need to get that Goddess. GODDSS, you need to get that Goddess kisses as well. It's not enough. Anyways, with the mystic side aside, back to geopolitics. My dream is fundamentally for the North American collective. When I say support my dream, pledge your allegiance to our family, friends with benefits only. My dream is fundamentally a public-private partnership for the North American Civilizational Collective for North America. A public-private partnership for the North American Collective. A public-private partnership. A PPP. So this public-private partnership to be constituted across the North American Collective to create the North American Integrated Security Service and Defense Force, aka the North American Legion. But we're going to fuse the North, True North, Strong and Free, and the South. Because basically it's a North and South fusion. It will be a North and South fusion. It will be a North and South fusion via my Trinity of theories, the CIT citizen integration theory, the DRT neutral fusion theory, and the democratic fusion theory in a democratic republican centrism way, because we need to get the public as well. We need to give people some second chances. I got my own second chance, third chances, and many a times I say, well, I was depressed, suicidal, I was also very, I was on the obese side. I lost between 80 and 93 pounds. 80 and 93 pounds since I went coast to coast, ocean to ocean, and that event really changed my life. Crossing Canada, I started establishing a strong esprit de corps with my fellow Canadians and our family, and my family here, Quebecers, and if there's ever an invasion, also to my brothers and sisters, who's gonna run towards the border if the Army of China, Chinese PLA, People's Liberation Army invades, or Army of Russia descends on coast to coast. It's gonna be me. I'm gonna take this backpack, red, my favorite color. Gonna stack it up with cans, whatever, extra clothing. I got the boots ready. Say, where are you running? Where are you running like a man? Where are you running like a man? Where are you running like a man? Say, you kidding me? My brothers and sisters in the USA are being invaded. See on the news, there's an invasion, breaking news. I'm gonna start running towards the border. Say, hey, where's this? Say, salute, let's go. We got. So definitely, if there was but only for defense. It has to be understood clearly that the Dragon Army to be only for security, service, and defense. The principle of SSD, security, service, and defense. Fundamentally. Just like the principles of geopolitics is, of course, that geopolitically our fundamental, in essence, interest is to have the best cordial relation with the United States. and the United States is vice versa. So that is the constant, just like the pi, the mathematical pi, which represents 3.14, 3.16. So that is the fundamental, in essence, of course, geopolitical reality, that the United States has to be, that the interest of the United States of America has to be that the United States has the best, most cordial interest with Canada, and vice versa for Canada. So it goes both ways. Just like this table, split in the middle here. So we're gonna fuse together in the public-private partnership based, the dream, the dancing goddess, and the dragon kingdom. Now back to the trade war. Whether I believe that strategy, whatever the case may be, as a strategy, whatever the case may be, is there some truth to certain trade imbalances, standards of operation, standards of being import, export, quality, quantity. I'm not going to divulge and go into a whole rant about quality, quantity, dumping, and internal, because my main area is not economic, financial, commercial. Although in geopolitics you have to know a little bit, but that's why paradoxically my DRT theory, the debt fusion theory for the North American collective, for Canada, United States joint, is the theory to be implemented as of today. We have to start implementing because it's an emergency. The public financial collapse is a possibility on the horizon due to the excessive debt interest which we have paid on the public debt of Canada, which I'm going to come back to. So the trade war now, of course, there's trade involved around the world. People on the phone screaming, buy, sell, buy, sell, buy, sell. Please, Wall Street, finance the public workers, the firefighters, finance them a massage therapy session, because I wish I could afford a massage therapy session, but I'm going to take a bath instead. Finance the firefighters. Finance the firefighters, the massage therapy sessions, and finance, of course, not only the firefighters, but the public workers who pick up the garbage, the recycling, those workers in the public who work in sanitation, public sanitation workers, and those who build the highways, who fill up the potholes, who do the underground, of course, the aqueducts underground, the sewers, the public workers of the cities of both Canada, United States. Please, Wall Street, finance the public workers of North America, massages, spot. They deserve it, earning more than yours truly, along with the firefighters. Please, millionaires, don't be so selfish. I'm not totally selfish. I'm not totally selfless. I'm not totally selfless. I'm not totally selfish. So try to be in the balance. But financially, I'm stressed. But geopolitics, creme de la creme. I'm the top among the top. I predicted what's happening now back in 2019. I have proof. I have the videos online. I have predicted what's happening now back in 2019 in a general overall manner. I believe consequently, truthfully, that my trinity of theories are the best way to move us forward for what's happening now. There's a possibility, as we have seen, of course, just to interject another geopolitical reality, is that today and yesterday, China did another very hardcore, aggressive military drill for the invasion of Taiwan, maybe on the 7th of April. People's Republic of China, not to be confused with Republic of China, ROC. Republic of China is the island of Taiwan. The People's Republic of China is the mainland China, 1.4 billion populated civilizational complex of China. As a communist, socialist, Marxist-Leninist, paradoxically Marxist-Leninist, Marxist-Leninist, Maoist, based on Mao Zedong's and Xi Jinping's leadership. And to understand the China of today, and if you want to have a discussion about China, if we are to have a geopolitical discussion around China, you have to have read or know about, be knowledgeable about the governance of China, which I have read and have read in the past. And there's a new volume which I have to tackle again. And a new volume, the governance of China is Xi Jinping's thought, and there's several volumes, 4 volumes, which they come out every few years. And since more than 12 years of 13 years now of Xi Jinping's reign, since 2012, of course, there are several volumes which are known to as the governance of China, where Xi Jinping discusses the spiritual socialist civilization that China is to become. So again, the translation, sometimes there's lost in translation. When I hear the word spiritual, my spirituality is pretty rock and roll, and being that 93 bury me with Papa Crawley up in New Jersey, want to be Thelemite, just a piece of dust, want to be Thelemite, but nonetheless my spirituality is kind of rock and roll. I don't know, but I can wash feet like Jesus. I guess I can wash feet like Jesus, not a problem. But I also goddess, GeoDDSS. I also believe in the goddess, goddess. I have my own mystic theories, and and I don't have a problem with washing feet, whatever. If you want, pledge your allegiance, legions. It's rock and roll, It's ready to go, cool. But fundamentally, in essence, we have to understand that I'm a Quebecer, Canadian, North American. So my work is from a North American centric perspective. As much as I will have the will, and I am making an effort and have the will to be universal, I'm also an individual with Asperger's, neurodivergent part of the LGBT community, 50-50 man woman, man woman 50-50, and a centrist, pro labor, love revolutionary centrist. My centrism is tied hand in hand with my CIT, citizen integration theory, DRT, net fusion theory, and the democratic fusion theory. So to fundamentally understand my centrism, which is North American centrism with Fusion Canada United States, fusing Canada United States based joint public private partnership for the 21st century to build the Forgotten Goddess Temple, which I will, the Goddess Temple, the North American Imperial People's Coliseum to be 11 times bigger than the Caesar Superdome, which we used to be known as the Mercedes-Benz Dome, but they changed the name several times in the past 50 years, just like my name. Dragon became Dragon, Dragon became Dragon with blood, sweat, and tears. That ain't to a no, and Adrian Hanna Dragon, keep my name out of your mouth if it's not for a blessing. And that's what we gotta get doing. Adrian Hanna Dragon, being reborn. Adrian Hanna Dragon, keep my name out of your mouth if it's not for a blessing. Gotta give it for the butchers, the bakers, the nurses, the doctors, the grocery store clerks, all those involved in the production, distribution of food. And back to China, one has to be aware, if you want to have a conversation about China, you have to be aware that you have to know the governance of China, a little bit of those volumes and the fundamental philosophies and principles underlined and discussed in theory and theories discussed in the volumes, which they're pretty extensive. There's hundreds of pages to the volumes, and if not thousands of pages. It's also available on audiobook. You can check the audiobooks on YouTube, and then we can proceed in having but a discussion on China. But if you're not aware of and have then about the governance of China, which underline the main philosophies of how China is governed today and how they envision their future for them, from their perspective, they're underlined and equated and established and discussed in the governance of China. So if you want to discuss, you have geopolitics, China, then you have to know the governance of China. Otherwise, we cannot kind of, it's gonna be like an impasse, an impasse between me and whoever you are. If you want to engage geopolitically, strictly from a mere, not a personal. I take great pride in my geopolitical work, and just know that when I'm discussing geopolitics, just don't take it like personally. Don't take it personally. Don't take it personally. Geopolitics is my realm, my kingdom, my special interest as an ASPI. So sometimes I can go on and on for hours, and you can dissect different academic intellectual principles which can be deconstructed in more simple terms, or I can try to put in more simple terms without using too much verbose terminology and vocabulary, which is not precedent to taking a solution or finding a resolution to the point in fact being that theory has to be put into practice, just like my CIT, citizen integration theory, has to be applied Canada United States joint fused, and the DRT, network fusion theory, Canada United States joint fused, the DRT, and the democratic fusion theory, the DFT, that trinity of theories for the creation of the two new 21st century institutions, the DGA, Dancing Goddess Army, to be for environmental education and purpose and pleasure, and the Dragon Army, North American Integrated Legions, the new legions, pledge your legions, friends with benefits only to our family. So and welcoming in the North American collective all who come to join us here in the New World, because we North Americans, Quebecers included, we're a new emergent civilizational complex, and we made great compromises with my brothers and sisters who are blacks. 13.3, 13.4%, my neighbors including, are black, right? My black brothers and sisters, my French Canadian brothers and sisters, 9 million of us French Canadians speak French. I love to sing that French rock and roll, and I am a Quebecer, and I was born a Quebecois, but before Quebec was known as today, in around between 1700s there, and I met Louis Cyr in a past life. I met Louis Cyr, the very strong person, very super strong person, and I did arm wrestling with Louis Cyr in a past life, and for 7 years my arm was like, ah. Anyways, my belief in reincarnations aside, back to the geopolitical realities of the new drills of China surrounding Taiwan and doing aggressive drills. They call it Thunder. Thunder. Operation Thunder, parallel to my calling for the Operation Northern Scorpio, is of course Fundamentally, in essence, that's a conflict which was not resolved fully from the 20th century. From the 20th century, regardless of this trade dispute between Canada and the United States, we fundamentally, Quebecers, Canadians, have managed to make so many compromises between us, brothers and sisters, brothers and sisters here. With my brothers and sisters, blacks, to invite them at the table, as equals, as our fellow brothers and sisters, fellow citizens, to ensure this new thing called freedom, and to have some justice, justice. Some justice, but justice also, I cannot do it alone. I cannot do it alone myself, I have to do my individual work and your individual work, and to be a little bit more charitable. Please, millionaires, rock stars, and artists, and athletes, and billionaires, go incognito. Rap stars. I rap a little bit also. Always rap for the farmers, butchers, bakers, nurses, truckers. Always rap for the butchers, bakers, nurses, doctors, truckers. Always rap for the farmers, for the butchers, for the bakers, for the construction workers, for those daycare workers. Do a little bit of rap. Rock and roll, both together, I guess. Rock and roll rap. Old school, new school, but these are energies which used to be channeled. Violence, I don't like violence. I do not like violence. I want to see our streets across Canada and the United States as playgrounds. And violence and aggression, channel it. That's why I'm going to build the North American People's Imperial Coliseum, a structure where we have sports in perpetuities. And we have to rebuild, reconstruct the North American ghettos as well. You have to sign a mass executive order, mass billions and billions and billions of dollars. I want divesting. If we're going to fuse, we're going to have the resources of Canada and the population of the brothers and sisters in the USA. Because we need each other. We need each other. The geopolitical reality and the common destiny is a North American collective civilizational complex. As much as I am a universal world citizen and for world peace, fundamentally I'm a North American Quebecer Canadian. This is what I know. Quebecer Canada, for studied and learned and governance of China, I can discuss the theories laid in the governance of China, but fundamentally in essence, I don't live in China. I didn't live in China. I have no antagonistic or any business interest. I have none. I came here with nothing. I don't even think I have anything that I used to have prior to moving here. I don't think I have anything left of what I moved, not sure exactly, 8, 9, 10 years ago here and moved. I don't think I have anything left. I got this new table last year and that's got a bed. So that's it, that's all, I am for prosperity, I am for property, but it takes public-private partnership. So back to geopolitics, to get it on the geopolitical situation of today. It's a new start of a major change. The established international financial commercial order for the time being has been unsettled. Tariffs as a strategy. USA is the biggest market. The USA is the biggest market. The USA is still the biggest market. As a strategy, geopolitical strategy, I'm letting the open question. What I will say is that from a geopolitical perspective, from a geopolitical dynamic, a nation state is not obliged to do business with another nation state. Right? It's abstract notions which were put into practice, free trade and international trade. Right? Tariffs goes to more like Auntie Freeland said, that the United States and Trump's regime are going to pursue an aggressive economic nationalist policy. Aggressive economic nationalism. She summarized the coming policies of tariffs very wisely. The Trump administration is going to pursue aggressive economic nationalism. She summarized on Auntie Freeland, which I love a lot. I call her Auntie Freeland because, you're like my family here, and sometimes we're dysfunctional, Just like I can say Granddaddy Trump, I would love to just, say that bullying, fight and give a little bit of jabs, left and right, jabs, left, right, jabs, left, right. A little bit of jabs left and right, But at the end of the day, I wouldn't go so far as I believe there's still some redeemable redemption by saying I'm sorry, and it was not the right way to invite Canada. Invite us properly, and I say so a lot of Canadians like myself, hey, with some special arrangements, such as massive. We need the public healthcare. We need public healthcare. We need the public and the private public healthcare, and we need to secure some resources. We need to secure some resources from corporate abuse and corporate misuse, and to give some resources for the rebuilding of the North American ghettos, for example, to use some of that wealth to go there, and to for the rehabilitation of the homeless population, for the rehabilitation of the veterans, for the rehabilitation and for those more vulnerable citizens. Because I did a lot of rehabilitation and healing myself. I don't know if prior to moving here I was maybe a I should not use the term junkie, but I have a song which I wrote. Was I a junkie in a past life? Was I a junkie in a past life? Was I a junkie in a past life, roaming the streets without a dime? I wrote a song related to me. In a past life, I wasn't really doing drugs, but I don't do drugs. I have legal cannabis. I haven't smoked in a while, but you know, whatever the case may be, it's legal here, cannabis coast to coast. But whatever the case may be, I think Donald Trump should swallow your ego, Donald Trump, and say, I'm going to fight you, dragging on the Canadian border, and we're going to build. We're going to build the North American People's Imperial Coliseum, Canada, United States, a massive, the biggest sports complex, fitness and entertainment arena in the world. In the world. The biggest sports fitness arena in the world on the Canadian-US border. The biggest sports fitness, the mega Canada-United States joint, the Dragon Trump Coliseum on the Canadian-US border. I credit feet washing, massages, kissing to the construction workers because I know blah blah blah. To go on those cranes, and build, gotta salute engineers and builders and construction workers, mass respect, rock and roll. So build the biggest sports facility ever built in the world together, Canada, United States, for 24-hour sports, for people to be able to do, to do some boxing, and aggression needs to be channeled. Channel. Hot. Hardball ball, aka blackout ball, bigger, 11 times bigger the Coliseum than the hardball ball. 11 times bigger than the hardball ball, where the hardball ball, aka blackout ball, was played on the Canadian-US border, and consequently equal 50-50, half-half, to build the forgotten goddess temple, the goddess GeoDDSS temple, the goddess temple. Trillions of kisses to build that temple. I credit all willingly living. And the pyramid, scarlet, crimson, scarlet, the house of the dragon, scarlet, house of the dragon, scarlet, the house of the dragon, scarlet, crimson are shades of red. And the fourth building, the Rainbow People's Palace, for my fellow neurodivergent Aspies or autistic community, and for my fellow people who are neurodivergent, and for my fellow people who live in the LGBTQ community, LGBTQ plus community, to build those four buildings. And together, to have the North American Criminal Rehabilitation Act for my brothers and sisters who lost their liberty, to build those 44 tunnels in case of a thermonuclear war. Because there's a possibility on the horizon of a thermonuclear war, and we want to get building those 44 tunnels based on my theoretical paper written about a few years ago, about more than 6, sometimes entitled the Citizen Public-Private Partnership Citizen Integrated Initiative for the Construction of Mega Facilities in Case of a Thermonuclear War. So it has a more fancy academic intellectual title, but basically it's building 44 tunnels, mass tunnels, to be able to be stacked with cans of food and lots of goods in case of a thermonuclear war. So that is what we got to be doing. That's what we got to be doing, a little bit of that work with that, and we got to consequently start building the apparatus and consequently start building those tunnels. So in terms of the geopolitics is of course a new reality which has begun yesterday with the signing of the tariffs and the imposition of many tariffs with a 10% baseline. I still have to look at some details because the tariffs range from 26% to 44% to 25% to 40% to 33% to 11%. So the tariffs range from country to country. They're called reciprocal, although there's a balance and not exactly by exactly the same percentage, but fundamentally, like I said, a nation state is not obliged by any obligations whatsoever to do business, conduct business, import, export business, but it has been established for the past decades, and if, even in the past 100 years, that nation states have been. But economic nationalism, like my auntie Freeland stated, that's basically what we've been saying. So auntie Freeland, Christian Freeland, of course, said in a statement that the Trump administration is going to pursue aggressive economic nationalism. So aggressive economic nationalism is basically these tariffs. That's the policies, the geopolitical, financial, commercial, economic policies which we are seeing. It's an aggressive economic nationalism. Now, the paradox is that within this tough economic financial situation, because you should retrieve immediately starting today, 3 p.m., Donald Trump say, I made a mistake. Donald Trump, I want to hear those words. With Canada, I made a mistake. I don't know what I was thinking. I really want Canada to join to become the 51st state, or because we're 10 provinces and 3 territories, 63. That means 10 plus 3, that's 13. 13 like the original states, I guess. Adding 13 more, one for each province, it would be maybe something which we got to work on that instead of the 51. And then instead of the 51 legions of the Dragon Army, we're going to get 63, 63, 63 by mobilizing 1% of the population of each state, to mobilize 1% of each population of each state for security, service, and defense by the principle of the Dragon Army, for security, service, and defense, and all who have been living here for the past 7 years in Canada to be eligible to serve for the past 7 years have been living in Canada to be eligible to serve, and even those who are incarcerated to be able to get their redemption and their second chance by that, and to have open to implement Operation Northern Scorpio and implement the total mobile defense theory system, to have sports and fitness and recreation, and of course recreation and rehabilitation and defense, security service, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, to do a census, a great North American census and audit, a great North American census and audit, a great North American census and audit, great North American census and audit, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, and of course to create a common currency by the implementation of my DRT theory, the debt refusion theory, and of course to create a common passport. Canada and United States join, but I guess fusing in those states, to have states, of course, to have public health care as well, to maintain a lot of big, strong public health care. We cannot just have everything private, and for the Bay it is, and the Bay it is, we have to mass distribute, and by the DRT theory, debt refusion theory, we're going to reach that balance. We reach that balance, the debt refusion theory, the creation of the UE, U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit. The creation of the universal exchange unit is a must. With that, we're going to put checkmate on the geopolitical Canada United States fuses. Checkmate. We're gonna fuse. We're gonna get that checkmate with Canada fused. The United States as a geopolitical entity, which is gonna put that checkmate. On the geopolitical fusion of Canada United States. That's how we gotta see it together. The king is absent. We gotta pledge allegiance to the people who live here in the North American civilization, fellow Quebecers, Canadians, and my brothers and sisters in the USA, and reform against injustice, public-private partnership based the DRT. We're going to take all the public and the private debt, including mine, $10,000, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, all the public-private debt. We're going to refuse it. All that number is going to be the initial money supply for a new central bank. We're going to create a new currency called the UE, U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit, U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit, the UE. That's why I'm calling my astrological brother Bill Gates, to help support his Scorpio brother Bill Gates and others of the complex of the security and tech apparatus, coast to coast, ocean to ocean, and both the public and the private. BlackRock and Blackstone are two different entities, but they're separated in 1989. But such institutions as all the banking and financial institutions need to be both the public and the private banking and financial institutions for the implementation of my DRT theory, the debt refusion theory, DRT debt refusion theory, for the creation of the UE, U dot universal, E dot exchange, U dot unit, the UE to be fundamentally for the new creation, and by the creation of the UE, by taking all the public and the private debt, and we have no choice, because of course we're in an emergency point of conjunction where the public interest which we paid on the public debt has doubled in 3 years during COVID. And of course, due to the fact that it has doubled, there's consequently no other solution but implementing my debt refusion theory, for the consequence to be that I'm going to have to go for a second, and before I discuss the DRT, I'm going to come back. I'm just going to go blow my nose. Brain is being regenerated, I guess. Maybe I got a little bit of that brain, but let's see what I got. Let's see. Oh yeah. Did some laundry also, so I gotta be grateful for the laundry. Put another cup of coffee. Now I'm gonna discuss the DRT. Before I do continue, I'm just gonna pour some more of that coffee, and it's strong enough to make a third cup out of this, but of course I'm only feeling it like 1/3 and 1/2, so that's how we gotta get doing with that, and that's how we gotta get. I gotta clean the handle of this afterwards, and I washed my hands. In the hygiene is also important. I try to keep the protocols when I go into public, the protocols which were established during COVID, and I carry my little antibacterial with me. Carry my antibacterial. I always carry the antibacterial. I have the antibacterial which I carry open carry with yours truly. So, meaning that I carry it. I carry the antibacterial with yours truly. So that's gonna be for today. That's it. That's all with that. And I guess I'm just gonna end it today, but because I realized that I'm gonna be running late. See, I lose track of time, and I realize that I might be late with something. I have to do another load of laundry, so and then I have to work out. So I could have discussed geopolitics for hours and hours and hours, and keep on going and going on and on and on, and revise theories and go back and forth on geopolitics because that's my special interest, and it's 24/7, eh? So being that it's 24/7 geopolitics, that's the geopolitical realities with this Aspie artist, athlete, philosopher. So that's what it is. And make LOV tonight. Hug like you never hugged before. But it's gonna be a part two soon, tomorrow, today, in the coming days, and whatever have you is gonna be another part. So let's go. Rock and roll, rock and roll, rock and roll.